This is about getting in touch with what's going on in your awareness and freeing your mind from the ego. This is what this is about. This isn't about getting an A, B, C, D, this is about freeing your mind. And there was such a trust built up just from that common experience of going for this purpose together. The movies were spectacular. I showed the movie with Peter Sellers being there, and they were just fascinated as that movie played out, how defenseless he was, how innocent, how everybody was projecting onto him. In fact, they wanted him to run for president at the end of the movie because he seemed to be so friendly, and yet he wasn't saying a lot of important things. He was kind of using a lot of garden metaphors, and he would go on talk shows, and they would think he was this huge wise master, and he was so simple. And the students followed it all the way through until the very end of the movie, where he just wanders off by himself, and he wanders down by the water, and he walks out on the water with his umbrella, and the students are like gasping as he's like walking out on the water, and then just like with a childlike curiosity, he takes his umbrella and he stoops over and he puts it down as if like, what is water? He didn't know anything about water. He didn't know that you're not supposed to walk on water. And therefore, he had no limits. Some of you remember that story from the Bible, where Peter tries to walk on water, and then as soon as he's like, looks down and he thinks, I'm walking on water, then he starts to sink. But Peter Sellers in this character, Chauncey Gardner, he's not sinking. He's just like a little child curiously going, look at this, like putting the umbrella down in the water. So it's that sense of not knowing, that's where you return to your power. It's just these ego beliefs that have limited us. Some of you remember the Matrix movie where, Morpheus has got Neo in this simulation training where it's kind of using martial arts. They're kind of going at each other, and at the end, basically, he says, how did I beat you? And Neo's trying to come up with a reason, and he's saying, you were stronger, you were faster, all the typical kind of things that a martial arts student might say. And Neo's just, Morpheus is shaking his head, and he says, do you really believe that that's air that you're breathing? Like you forgot, we're in a simulator. I'm not this body, you're not that body, this is all digital. There's no air here. You're talking about strength and speed. In what? It's all digital. Do you really believe that that's air that you're breathing? Now that's getting down to a pretty deep assumption. Whoops, I forgot. It's all digital. And that's really what the Course is teaching us, and Jeshua is teaching us, is that we really do live in a digital world. Even the quantum physicists are telling us, it's just pixels. It's just digital imagery, but it's just that the mind that has forgotten that it's dreaming has become so identified, like Derek was saying, with the body, that everything is so body-based. Heart rate, cholesterol level, skin tone, height and weight and all these things, neurology, all the different systems of the body. It's like it's become a science, and all of it is based on the idea that there's this empirical thing called a body that exists apart from the rest of the cosmos, and that you can be identified with it and not with the rest of the cosmos. When Jesus is saying, oh, this is your cosmos, you can't just pull out a little strand of the tapestry, a little thread, and go, oh, that's me. It's your whole, you're not this little thread. But it takes a lot of mind training to kind of go the other direction, so that's why we have these gatherings, to raise issues, to talk about these things in a friendly, respectful way, to say, okay, I'm ready to go the other direction now, I'm ready to identify with my spirit, and to slowly, as guided, disidentify from the body, like Derek was talking about today. And the joy gets stronger and stronger when we do it in a guided way. If we try to do it in a forced way, or we try to really push the envelope in a way where we're really not ready psychologically, then that will just result in repression.
You're to take the magazine to New Zealand and Australia. And I said, oh, Australia? But I don't understand how to do that. And she said, you need to come back to Sedona. And I said, well, we've already left there and we just wanted to get the books from you. She said, you're to come back to give you the magazine. And I said, well, we haven't got any money. And she said, have I asked for any? I said, no. And I said, I don't know anything about magazines. And she said, that's really good. That's the best stuff you can have. So she said, please come back. So anyway, we got in the van and we drove back 4 or 5 hours back to Sedona and went into the office, and she said, okay, there's a computer. She said, write yourself a contract. She said, I don't want any money, but just say whatever it is you want. I'm to give you a complete magazine that I produce once a month, and I'll give it to you on disc, and I'll give it to you every month. All you've got to do is to print it in New Zealand. And I said, why are you doing this? And she said, because Spirit told me that somebody would come from Australia and New Zealand, and I was to give them the magazine. So here we are, 13 years later, right? We had many, many unbelievable experiences, and in the course of today, what I've been doing is reviewing my memories of all those experiences and starting to see the memories for what they are. I'll just share one because it will make you laugh. We arrived back in well, actually, what happened after that was for the next 6 weeks before we came back to the South Pacific from the States, every single day we were met or guided to another spiritual teacher. So it was like Lee Carroll, we had to go and see him. We had no idea who he was, and he invited us for lunch and told us all about cryon. And we went back to the van, in fact, right after signing this thing, and a woman comes running out of a house across the street saying, there's a phone call for you. And I said, well, and she said, well, this guy does. And I said, hello? And he said, my name is whatever it was. And so he said, you're to come and see me. And I said, well, who are you? And he said, well, that's not important. And he said, I'll give you directions. And I said, why? And he said, I said, how did you get this number? We don't even live here. And he said, I said, where'd you get the number from? And he said, I channel an energy called Yahweh, and Yahweh gave me the number and said to call you and tell you to come to my house. And we had 6 weeks of that. I mean, and unbelievable. And we made all these friends. One of them was Jenny King with Batar, who channels Batar. And so we became friends with a lot of these people. So we had this entire training program for 6 weeks and then returned to New Zealand. Well, my way of doing business, if I don't know much about it, is to print a flyer, which you've probably noticed, and is to send it out to as many people as I can. So we did that. We got some money together. We scratched up $1,000. We made a flyer, and it was an invitation to buy a subscription to this new magazine that we were bringing in. In 6 weeks in New Zealand, from returning, we were given, you have to imagine, we were given 10,000 names and addresses by everybody we met, every Reiki teacher we met, every spiritual person we met. We didn't know anybody when we arrived on the plane, so in 6 weeks we had 10,000 names and addresses, all current. So we decided we'd print 10,000 flyers, as you would. So we did. And then we realised, because I'd had a big business before that, I forgot about the postage stamps. Here we were, completely broke, with 10,000 flyers sitting in the lounge, and postage was going to be $5,000, and that's it. I mean, we were buggered. And my wife went off to the post office on the Monday morning, and she came back and she said, do you believe in the spiritual stuff? And I said, well, buggered if I know. I really have no idea. I said, we'll just go with the flow and see what happens. And she said, you better read this. So she had this flyer she picked up in the post office, and it said, for the first time in the history of the Western nations, for the first time in the history of New Zealand, the post office is giving the people of New Zealand a one-day free post we mailed out 10,000 flyers, courtesy of Holy Spirit. They've never done it again. And we got back 600, just under 700 subscriptions at $75 each in 2.5 weeks. $50,000 came in cash, and it checks in 2.5 weeks. We had nothing. And so here we were, we had no reason not to go ahead and print this magazine. So we did, and it was called Sedona Journal of Emergence, after the name of the magazine in the States.